In a solemn message, Russian President Vladimir Putin cautions Western nations that a potential Russia NATO conflict is dangerously close to escalating into a catastrophic global conflict reminiscent of World War III. Greetings, everyone. Today's video focuses on the statement made by Russian President Vladimir Putin regarding the potential consequences of a direct conflict between Russia and NATO. According to Putin, such a conflict would bring the world dangerously close to another global war. While acknowledging that very few desire this outcome, Putin emphasized that NATO military personnel are already present in Ukraine. He further stated that if attacks persist, Russia will establish a buffer zone using additional Ukrainian territory to safeguard its own. In response to criticism from the United States and the West regarding the recent Russian election, which the White House deemed unfair, Putin countered by questioning the democratic nature of US elections. And now, without any further delay, let us begin our discussion. In a stern message to the West, Russian President Vladimir Putin emphasized that if a direct confrontation were to occur between Russia and the US-led NATO military alliance, it would bring the world dangerously close to the brink of World War III, although he acknowledged that very few individuals desire such a scenario. Moscow's relationship with the West has been plunged into its most severe turmoil since the Cuban Missile Crisis of 1962 due to the conflict in Ukraine. While Putin has frequently cautioned about the dangers of nuclear warfare, he asserts that he has never found it necessary to employ nuclear weapons in Ukraine. In a recent statement, French President Emmanuel Macron acknowledged the possibility of deploying ground troops in Ukraine in the future, a stance that has received mixed reactions from Western countries, with some distancing themselves and others, particularly in Eastern Europe, expressing their support. When questioned by Reuters about President Macron's remarks and the potential for a conflict between Russia and NATO, Putin responded with a wry comment, stating that anything is possible in today's world. After securing the largest victory in post-Soviet Russian history, Putin expressed his belief to reporters that the situation at hand is undeniably a mere stone's throw away from a global conflict of unprecedented proportions. He further emphasized that the lack of interest displayed by the majority towards this potential catastrophe is quite apparent. Putin further mentioned that NATO military personnel had already been detected in Ukraine, noting that Russia had intercepted conversations in both English and French being spoken on the battlefield. He expressed concern over the dire situation, emphasizing the high death toll and its negative impact on those involved. In the lead-up to the Russian election scheduled for March 15th, 17, Ukraine intensified its offensive against Russia, launching attacks on border areas and employing intermediaries in an attempt to breach Russian borders. When questioned about the necessity of seizing Ukraine's Kharkiv region, Putin responded by stating that if the assaults persisted, Russia would establish a buffer zone using additional Ukrainian territory in order to safeguard Russian land. Putin stated that considering the ongoing tragic events, there may come a time when it becomes necessary to establish a designated sanitary zone in the territories currently controlled by the Kiev regime, if deemed appropriate. Without divulging additional information, he expressed the possibility of establishing a zone of sufficient size to prevent foreign manufactured armaments from entering Russian territory. In February 2022, Putin made the decision to initiate a complete invasion of Ukraine, resulting in a significant escalation of the conflict that had been ongoing for 8 years in eastern Ukraine between Ukrainian forces and pro-Russian Ukrainians, as well as Russian proxies. Expressing his desire for a change in approach, Putin urged Macron to refrain from further exacerbating the conflict in Ukraine and instead contribute to the pursuit of peace. He suggested that France has the potential to play a significant role in this endeavor, emphasizing that there is still hope for a positive outcome. Reiterating my previous statements, I will once more emphasize: our stance remains in favor of engaging in peaceful negotiations, not solely due to the depletion of the enemy's ammunition, declared Putin. Putin disregarded the criticism from the US and the West regarding the election, which the White House claimed was not conducted fairly, and instead criticized the US elections as undemocratic, while also condemning the use of state power against Donald Trump. He emphasized that if there is a genuine desire to establish long-term peaceful and cooperative relations between the two states, it should not be merely a temporary pause for rearmament lasting 2 years. Regarding the United States, Putin expressed his belief that the current situation is not only a catastrophe, but also a source of amusement for the entire world. He questioned the validity of the events unfolding, wondering what exactly is being witnessed, as it does not align with his understanding of democracy. During a public discussion regarding the mysterious passing of opposition leader Alexei Navalny at a Russian prison in the Arctic on February 16th, President Putin referred to Navalny by name for one of the initial instances, stating that he had simply passed away. According to reports, Putin had reached an agreement a few days prior to Navalny's passing to exchange him. In February, Reuters disclosed that a deal for a prisoner swap involving Navalny had been finalized shortly before his death. Regarding my consent for the exchange of prisoners, Putin stated, "I expressed my agreement by saying, I agree." He emphasized that he had one specific condition. The individual would be exchanged, but under no circumstances should they be allowed to return. The accusation made by Yulia Navalnaya, the widow of Navalny, against Putin for the murder of her husband, has been refuted by Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov, who stated that the claim is unequivocally incorrect. To support our channel's growth and ensure broader awareness, kindly hit the like and subscribe buttons. This will help us reach more individuals and disseminate valuable information. Thank you in advance.